G'day, Julio here, talking again about have a Go Spaghettio. What else? Give it a try, banana pie. This presentation is looking at the ABC theory of emotional disturbance paradigm a little bit more closely, and because it underpins the have a Go Spaghettio success helper approach to social emotional learning. So this is the theory or the paradigm on which it is based. So it's always worthwhile a revisit. The more we revisit, the better we get at understanding it and applying it in practice. So let's have a go Spaghettio. What is it? Albert Ellis' ABC theory of emotional disturbance is a paradigm within the field of rational emotive behaviour therapy, REBT. It provides a framework for understanding how our thoughts, beliefs and events interact to influence our emotional and behavioural responses. So, do we construct an A plus B equals C outlook or philosophy, which says that when something happens at A, how we respond to it emotionally and behaviourally at C is also linked to B, our interpretation, assessment of the event? Or are we developing an A equals C outlook? That is, when I feel and act as I do, it's a consequence of A. So someone or something is making me feel and act as I do. So one that kind of characterizes an external locus of control, whereas A plus B equals C characterizes internal locus of control, or a tendency to see things or to take responsibility in a sense of how one feels and how one behaves. So in terms of have a go Spaghettio, we would like students to develop an A plus B equals C outlook for them to appreciate and understand that as constructivists, they are in the process of constructing ideas that can either be helpful, success helper ideas, or success stopper ideas, brain bully ideas. Just to reiterate that the have a go Spaghettio success helper chart, as it's presented here, is underpinned by the ABC theory of emotional disturbance paradigm. There are 6 competencies, capabilities that we teach children explicitly in our day-to-day interactions in the classroom that relays the idea that as you think, your interpretations of events, perceptions, have an effect on how we respond to an event emotionally and behaviorally. In a classroom setting, you might want to also use the expression classroom rules. I mean, these six success helper competencies could be articulated as our 6 success helper rules, our thinking rules, our behaving rules, and the idea being that we want children to understand that when they make particular choices or they respond in a particular way, that there's something about what's happening cognitively in their heads that's linked also to emotional and behavioral outcomes. So what are the influences on REBT? Rational Emotive Behaviour Therapy, REBT, developed by Albert Ellis, was significantly influenced by philosophical and psychological thought. Key influences include the Stoic philosophers, particularly Epictetus, around about 100 AD, who emphasized the role of beliefs about events in causing emotional distress. Additionally, Ellis was influenced by existential philosophers like Heidegger and Tillich, who focused on human freedom and responsibility. Psychological influences include Karen Horney's concept of the tyranny of the shoulds and Adler's work. General semantics, such as Korzybski's general semantics, also influence REBT, highlighting the impact of language on thought and emotions. So there's a lot to unpack in terms of further study and investigation that I will leave it up to the individual, but essentially Albert Ellis's work is philosophically based. And that information I gleaned from the internet, and I put AI there because it's that artificial intelligence. So, what is an A equals C philosophical success stopper thinking outlook? In other words, what is it? What is it that children or we develop ideas that where we think that something or someone external to us is causing our emotional and behavioural upset, or an external locus of control, predisposition, and an irrational one. This is where the unaware individual believes that events, A, what happens, cause or give rise to the emotional and behavioural consequences, C, related to A. This is where there's no idea that, no appreciation of the link between perception of events and how that impacts emotions and behaviours. So this is an A equals C philosophical perspective, the belief that when I feel and behave as I do at C, it's because someone or something outside of me is causing that upset. So the irrational rules that Albert Ellis identified were the three maiden musts, as he called it. I must get what I want. I should always get what I want, and if I don't, it's a major inconvenience. You must give me what I want. You must approve of me, like me, and if you don't, well, there's something wrong with you. Life should be easy, and I shouldn't be inconvenienced. So these three must rules constitute an irrational mindset, an A equals C mindset, where the individual is taking little or no responsibility for how they feel at C and how they act at C, and we would characterize that as having an external locus of control. The A plus B equals C success helper thinking outlook is when people or we tend towards an internal locus of control. We have an appreciation that when something happens, it depends on how you look at it, how you interpret what's happening. That can keep you relatively calm. This is where the unaware individual believes, subconscious thoughts, constructions, belief constructions, that whilst events A have something to do with the emotional and behavioural consequence at C of A, our thinking at B also plays a role. Now, our young children won't be aware of this, but children will be developing a tendency to one way of thinking or another, depending on their role models, what they're taught, how they're observing other people around them. So if a young child is observing or have parents that model the behaviours that suggest internal locus of control and high frustration tolerance, they will begin to think or model their thinking on what they observe in the people around them. And this is a rational mindset. I prefer to get what I want. It's nice to get what I want, and I'll work hard to get what I want, but I don't expect to always get what I want. So it's a preference thinking outlook. I prefer you to treat me as I would want to be treated. I'd like you to be friendly towards me and consider me your friend. But because you don't want to, that's not a reflection on my worth. I'm okay anyway. And the last one there, things aren't easy sometimes, though I'd like them to be. So this is the opposite of believing that everything must go my way, and if it doesn't, it's a catastrophe, and woe is me, and my life's terrible. So that's an A plus B equals C philosophy. So the question is for our young learners, early childhood years, 5-year-olds, 7 or 8-year-olds, what kind of mindset or outlook are they constructing? And that's where Have a Go Spaghettio comes in, because it's saying if you do have an A equals C philosophy or tendency to think that way, well, here are some ways in which you can rethink that perspective and maybe adopt a more A plus B equals C philosophical outlook. Hope that makes sense. And this is just something I got off the internet, a visual. When a negative event happens at A, rational beliefs at B cause healthy negative emotions, whereas a negative event considered from an irrational perspective leads to unhealthy negative emotions. So that's just a simple illustration of what it is I've been talking about, and I hope it's making things a little bit clearer for you. Have a Go Spaghettio song, as usual. I always have this in my presentation. Kids love it. I like it. It sets the day up well, and it also brings into our awareness that, as the day unfolds, we're going to have some good bits and not so good bits. But hopefully the good parts will, there'll be more of that than the other. And that not to catastrophize when things don't go our way, but to look at them in a reasonable A plus B equals C way. So that's the Have a Go Spaghettio song. And lastly, the last word, of course, is to Albert Ellis. If something is irrational, that means it won't work. It's usually unrealistic. So that's how Ellis defines rational thinking, irrational thinking. If we believe we should always get what we want when we want it, that's kind of an unrealistic expectation, and our upset will be caused by that unmet expectation, that is an irrational perspective. So I'll leave that there. Until next time, have a Go Spaghettio, and of course, give it a try, banana pie. All the best. Bye.